So it'll be two parts. The beginning, I will tell you why I founded the Lewy Dementia Resource Center, and then we'll show you some parts of the website, which I think can be helpful to everyone. So the picture that's up is in black and white because it's a few years ago. It's my mom with me, and we were very close. And the reason I love this photo is because my mom really wasn't a hugger as an adult. But this one I just love it because it shows the love that we had between us all the time. We were very close. So when my mom was 75, she said to me when I was at her home that she was having trouble doing her checkbook. And she was amazing with numbers, so that was unusual when I looked at the checkbook and she was having trouble. And she went to her internist who told her that it was a normal part of aging. So that was the beginning of wrong information, of misdiagnosis, of frustration for 3.5 years. From geriatricians to neurologists, from being misdiagnosed with Alzheimer's, then 2 years later at that same geriatrician saying, I want to watch your mom walk. I said, why? I think she has Parkinson's. I said, oh my God, thinking that was the worst thing, not knowing anything. And I watched her walk and she was shuffling like she always had. And he said, it's the way she walks. I said, she's been walking like that for the past 2 years that I've been bringing her here. He hadn't noticed and I had no idea. Now I would notice it with one eye closed because I'm so aware of it. But it just showed me how much I didn't know. And again, we went from doctor to doctor. I will leave out major frustrations, major aggravation. I'll mention a couple of things. When she couldn't sleep well and Ambien was given to her, I happened to have slept in the same room with her at that time. She was right on the floor that night with one pill. She was once given another antipsychotic once, made her much worse. So I finally heard a neurologist at a major medical center in New York mention Lewy body to somebody else. And then I went back and looked online. There was very little information. And the truth is, this morning I just realized that it's been 25 years. And so there really wasn't much information out there. And I realized that from my mom turning 75, she had this disease for 18 long years. She lived with me for the last 7 years and she was bedridden all of that time. And so I really know she had almost every symptom except for 2 when I had looked it up. And when I mentioned it to a doctor, oh dear, that's very rare. That was, I'm saying it with that condescending face because that's how it was said to me. But I continued and continued until I got the right information, until I can get her on the right medication. And those 18 years, from the very beginning of her not being able to do her checkbook and with her living with me, I was literally with her to her last breath. So I know the disease from every single stage. I researched everything, tried to get as much information as I could within that year. I remember somebody saying to me, why didn't you speak to a social worker who could have helped you with a lot of things? And I said, who knew to see a social worker? And where would I find a social worker? So that's what got me started and involved here. I started leading the only support group in New York way back then. I'm now leading it, it's now in the 14th year. There was none. And New York has a very big metropolitan area, including 2 other states. And I was really the only person that people was calling. They had nobody else after the diagnosis or where they didn't know where to turn. At that time, I was asked to be on the board of directors of LBD. So I was on the board for 3 years while I was doing the support group. But as I kept answering the phone calls, after I was talking to people in the support groups and talking to them by phone, because then I gave them my phone number, I realized the frustration and how they had nowhere to turn, and they were just, they were lost. They just felt lost. And I just felt there was so much more needed to be done on an not just on a local basis in New York, but on an individual and personal basis. So that, and I had so much information from everything I had learned on my own, and why would I want everyone else to go through what I did when I already had it? I needed to share that information. And that's why I founded, right after my mom passed in 2015, I founded the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center in 2016 so that I could show information to as many people as possible. Now, I know quite a few people talk about having a small staff and a small amount of people. Everyone who works with me is a volunteer. There is no staff. I've been doing this for now 6.5 years. We have the only live helpline in the United States, 7 days a week, and we will speak to everyone individually and make sure that they get that call back that same day because we know how important it is. And every person who's working with us has had a family member with Lewy body so that they know everything that there is to know. That we didn't necessarily have to train them, although I could use more people and possibly train them, but to me it was really important to have people who have gone through this. And every single one of our board members is either a neurologist, a geriatrician, a neuropsychologist, or has a family member or had a family member with Lewy body. And I'm also really proud to say that there are 3 people who live with Lewy body on our board. And I've learned so much. So as I mentioned, I've been leading the support groups for caregivers all of these years. But just 1.5 years ago, I started a national group in the US for people who have Lewy body. And they call in from all over, depending on the time, and everybody will get up earlier from the West Coast versus the East Coast where I am. And I have to tell you that I have learned more in this 1.5 years, in the more than 20 years that I've been doing this, from the people who are living with Lewy. Hearing the personal stories and what's important to them and the difficult parts and what it's like for them, what they're feeling for their loved ones and how they are so concerned for them. And I don't think people aren't going to hear that in a doctor's visit, and you're not hearing it in a group visit. So it's just really important, and just very happy to be doing that. In addition to that, we do trainings for home health aides, because as we all talked about, if I'm giving a talk to new medical students or new doctors, they have all heard of Lewy body, but they don't know anything about it. How is a home health aide going to know anything about it? So I do some very good home health agencies do some dementia training. A majority of them do not. Either way, I've done them in person, I've done them on Zoom, so that I can present even just for a half an hour, and then they have Q&A, and now they have a way to connect with those people individually and understand, oh, this is what I need to know. And so I'm going to show you some things on the website, but I also want to say that because I was doing it locally and now nationally, but also I get requests from Canada and now in Mexico. And it's become worldwide. I had a family calling me from Indonesia and having a Zoom with the whole family because they didn't have a doctor where they lived and they needed the information. And then in speaking to Jose, he mentioned about in the care home that his mom is in Spain, that they didn't know anything about Lewy body. And so he arranged for a Zoom webcast. I gave my presentation and he beautifully translated into Spanish, and it went really well. So I'm very happy to do that. I'm really happy that we can make this part of the international coalition that Ashley and Lynn are starting, because to me, it's so important, because Lewy is not a local problem, it's a worldwide problem, and to me, I want to collaborate as much as I can and do whatever we can. And I loved last night at the cocktail reception actually happened to be talking to a woman, of course, who I had met 8 years ago at the Lewy Body Conference in Fort Lauderdale, who is a neurologist in Tel Aviv. And she said so many of her patients do not speak English, so she's been using some of the websites for information, but they only speak Hebrew. And so what I'm going to show you on the website is we now have 7 or 8 different documents that are translated into Spanish, because Jose translated them beautifully, and I got a compliment from someone who said, I never saw anything translated that well. And now, the neurologist, a wonderful woman from Tel Aviv, is going to translate those into Hebrew, and we're going to put those on our website within the next month. And I'm just so happy about that. So I'm just going to Daniel, the other way.
I always make Daniel.
Nice to that? Okay. Oh, and it's also not, I'm used to touch screens, so I just would like everyone to see, this is the website, and there's information under About Us, our mission, our vision, our purpose, what is Lewy body, and it will give all the information on symptoms and diagnosis and treatment, just as you can get in many other places. Under resources and professionals, though, I'll just click on New York for a moment. I'm doing this briefly. You will see we have lists of attorneys, where to brain donations, where to get information, counselors and therapists and doctors, and under doctors, there's lists of neurologists who in New York specifically, who I know the disease. So we have that for 3 states, and also, if I go back for a second, and so there's also information on physical therapists, on yoga, on drumming, on art and in dance, and many, many other topics. I'm used to touching the screen. Okay. So also on here, there are doctors in other states and other countries, if you can see on there. And you can see at the bottom here, if you click, it says international, and we have neurologists listed there too. We are trying to make it, it could be that some people have moved on, but so that you have information so you don't have to start from scratch. Because I just knew how frustrating it was for me to start from the very bottom, and at least you have a place to start for every one of these topics. And then under caregiving and support, again, I'll just click on New York, but I want everyone to know that there's information on here for all sorts of caregiving wherever you live and for any type of disease, because there's information on, if you say to do that. I can't make it bigger, Daniel, but that's okay. I think everybody can see it. As you can see, there's information on driving, how to have someone stop driving, we have an organization called the AAA who give driving tests in the States, how to help with home care, everyday care, on showering and feeding and anything that you need, meal deliveries and sundowning. There's information on all sorts of care, because I didn't want people to go from site to site for things. And then under activities and therapeutics, there's information on music and where to go for that, and art classes and boxing, etc. I'm going to go back to the home page for a moment. Oh, home, I see it over here. No. Okay, I'm going to scroll down for a minute. As you can see, what is Lewy body, the symptoms and everything on there. There's also the medical alert card. So I wanted everyone to know that this can be printed out. I'll just print it. I'll just show you that. It's 2-sided, and it will show many of the medications that a person should not be given. It's important for people to know it's 2-sided, and I think it's really important for anyone to have if you're going to an emergency room or any. I'm sorry, I don't know why I can't do it. Yeah, it's good. Have mouse. Thanks again. All right, I'll try not to open anything else, but I want to point them out to you. On here, differences between Lewy body, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. It's a chart that I have to tell you I've hardly seen anywhere. We put a lot of work into this to show the differences between the three, what's mild, what's not, where. So this is an important one. I just want to point that out. Over here under international pages, you can see these are all the topics, the questions, symptoms, diagnostic, treatment in Spanish. And then we have our French organization listed here. For anyone speaking French, they can go right there. We don't have to translate it because Sylvie will talk about that later, and it's right here. We'll have Hebrew here. I'll be happy to put any other language that people think would be helpful. I just wanted to talk a few minutes, I guess 2 more minutes, on what people talk about when they call and when they email. We get so many emails now and asking about hallucinations and what to do and Capgras syndrome and all those type of things. And my mother had so many of the symptoms, and I know what that's like, and most of you all know what that's like and how to handle that, and that's what is needed most. I also find that a lot of people, when they call, they may want to cry, they just may want to talk. A lot of times they just need to be validated, like what they're doing is okay. They just need to know, like if I go out for an hour, is it okay? Yes, please, take care of yourself. And the connection is extremely important. What I wanted to show you on here is on the logo. So when I created the organization, I was asked for a tagline, which is bringing awareness, supporting with love. And I had a few people say to me, well, you probably want to say supporting with care or caring and something. I said, no, I want to say with love. I want to say with love. And that is crucial to me in this organization and anyone who works with me. I have wonderful board members who are working closely. I have chosen them specifically because of besides of their knowledge and intelligence and care, because they are so loving and kind. And that was extremely important to me and still is. And in line with that, I wanted to say how important it is. I think, Chris, you may have mentioned that, how important our energy is to each other, whether you have dementia or don't, but specifically if you have Lewy body dementia. To me, I have found that people have a sixth sense, and that if you're frustrated or angry, you will feel that much stronger if you have Lewy body dementia and dementia, because the emotions are felt, that they don't disappear. So if you can be patient and kind and loving, even though sometimes it's really hard not to get angry and not to be frustrated, it goes a long way, because all of us want to be treated that way. And that's my biggest suggestion to most people, to please try to do that. In closing, I want you to know that we're working on 3, can't just do 1, 3 and maybe 4, 3 major projects that will, within possibly a year, and I promise you, will bring major awareness to this disease. And I look forward to working together with all of you in making that happen. And I'll share information as I have it. And what I wanted to say is, at the very bottom of the website, you can sign up for a newsletter. Just put your name and email address. So we'll keep you updated on anything that's going on and all of the awareness campaigns that I'm talking about. So you can do that. And I also want to say, one more, scroll down. Lastly, I don't know why I can't make that big again. Okay, it's in this corner. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay, so the helpline is right here, 516-218-2026. That's a number